on this Palkia list that a lot of players are saying is the new best deck.
Yeah, I'm sure she's happy not to be playing Mew right now because she's playing against a Darkrai V-Star deck that has a Galarian Weezing featured in it, and this is going to be a real treat. Johnathan bringing the spice to the stage and hopefully giving us an excellent game here with a deck that is considered one of the lower tiers currently.
The Darkrai V-Star was a fun promo. It just came out, and the players that like it love it. They say, you know, people are sleeping on the Darkrai, I'm telling you, and it's hard to believe that anecdotal evidence. There's always somebody trying to foist their tier 3 deck on you, like, I'm telling you, bro, it's crap.
It's the gas.
You gotta try it. And so we got Darkrai here, and again, 3-0, right?
Yeah.
So there's something here with the Galarian Weezing, like you talked about, Kyle. Shutting off abilities with that neutralizing gas is a great way to lock your opponent out of the game. We've seen so much Temple of Sinnoh, Path to the Peak, and you even talked about the Jolteon memory capsule. Locking your opponent out is one of the clearest path to victories in the current metagame.
Yep, we could see a fun back and forth here as Natalie likely not going with the boss's orders. We've seen a lot of players switching over to the cross switchers. Cross switchers might be a little more difficult to find than a boss's orders, and that means that you're going to be fighting through a lot of neutralizing gas.
I was so certain that cross switcher would just be like, you know, if heaven forbid boss's orders were ever to rotate, or there was some sort of counter that kept boss's orders from working. I think like Deancey. But cross switcher ended up finding its time way further ahead of schedule than I was expecting. But a lot of Sobbles in the prizes. Going to be very slow to get that engine online.
Yeah, Natalie's got her work cut out for her because double Sobble is not something you like to see. But, of course, we're going to go ahead and jump into the action, see what Johnathan has in store for us.
Oh, yeah, and both players hitting the ground running. We've got the Premier V attackers in the active for both players. This isn't going to be a slow start. I've got a Sobble. No, we're going to start just attacking with these Titanic. Pokemon V, get the evolution into V-Star. Johnathan opening up with the quick ball, getting rid of the canceling cologne. Again, that tech in case you run into a Miltank. Just going to discard it here in the matchup where it's not really required and just keep digging through the deck.
Yeah, we've seen this card included as a nod to Deancey as well, something that you just don't want to run into. Natalie was, I believe, playing that list in Australia previously, so maybe saying, "Ooh, I'm glad I didn't go with the turbo this time around." Yeah,
the turbo did so well right out of the gate. I think that is probably the first level of counter that players are going to look for. Can I disrupt this turbo? Do I just rely on it bricking? But it's always great with Ultra Ball and Quick Ball, these cards that let you discard. Your tech cards that you don't need for the matchup just become that discard fodder to activate your more pertinent abilities.
Johnathan already with a decision on hand, and he is looking to go aggressive. We see the Dark Energy into the discard pile by way of Ultra Ball. Was considering getting rid of a Dark Patch, but I believe we're going to see this whole hand play out into a Crobat, which is pretty nice.
Beautiful way to set up here. Normally, Crobat will get stranded in the active. There's a Path to the Peak in play. It doesn't have that really punchy impact it used to. And when you're able to set up turn 1 like this, get your hand all emptied out thanks to the Ultra Ball, thanks to the Quick Ball. Going to discard another energy potentially with this Radiant Greninja. After you get all set up and then draw back up to 6, you're ready to pivot into whatever you need to capitalize on such a powerful opening.
Yeah, we do see Radiant Greninja, and that's going to be a great inclusion in a deck like this. 12 Dark Energies. So we can see a lot of extra drawing and a lot of Dark Energies hitting the discard pile, which just means more damage for a Darkrai V-Star in the future.
Yeah, it's important to note that it doesn't need to be a water energy, right? We see Radiant Greninja all the time in these water engines, but if your deck has energy, you can use Radiant Greninja. You just got to believe.
See Johnathan going for a safe approach here, going to hold the Dark Energy, consider the attachment to the active, and I think that seems pretty fair. And now Crobat is going to Dark Acid up to 6, does find a Coughing. Wonder if that's the strategy here. Do you start to work on getting those extra evolutions in play, or do you stick with a smaller bench?
versus Palkia, it is always a hard decision. Do I just go all in with this powerful setup, make use of this fantastic combo that I've constructed here on my opener, right? This is still just the opener for Johnathan. Turn 1, and now everything is done. Choice Belt on the Darkrai. A lot of darkness energy in play. Could be a massive attack coming through, but Natalie is now in the driver's seat, has the opportunity to get a equally powerful setup and begin to threaten Jonathan's board.
Yeah, Natalie says, "Are you done yet? You did all this without a supporter, and now I've got my work cut out for me. I've got the Palkia, I've got some water energies by way of this Capacious Bucket. Interesting to note, there's 8 waters in this list as opposed to 7 that we're used to seeing, and I'm curious if that inclusion has been beneficial. You have to think that more water energies means more drawing.
Yeah, more water just means you get more discard fodder, more potential acceleration. Time and time again, these water decks, they have their premier attacker and are backed into a corner and have to pivot onto other attackers, right? That Aqua Bullet from the Shady Dealings in Teleon, the Radiant Greninja. I don't think we've seen any Moonlit Shurikens yet, but again, the threat of being able to employ any of these powerful attacks at any given time, and you only need to include one more energy in your deck, I think it might be the payoff, Kyle.
Yeah, no, it seems like a really strong addition. It's silly because it's just an energy card, but how many times are we asking for just one more energy off the top, you know? And,
yes.
it looks like it's going to work out nicely here. Natalie probably already knows the prize cards are not the best here, but we'll be able to find one Sobble, potentially a second. But when you do see a Darkrai as charged as this one, maybe you start wondering, do I need to get a second Palkia down? Because I could be in trouble.
Get the second Palkia, exactly. You need that backup. If this one happens to get KO'd, you have something to pivot to. The Battle VIP Pass allowing Natalie to sculpt her bench in order to respond to this very powerful setup and foundation from Jonathan's side. The Darkrai massively threatening, even has the Galarian Moltres ready to go. Anything could start just cracking down on this board. And here we go. It's just going to be Origin Form Palkia into Rule the Region. Just getting the path to the peak, trying to set up, get a little bit more reactivity into what Johnathan might be wanting to do, but not as scary as a setup coming from Natalie here, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is definitely a nice start here for Johnathan. Has Dark Patch to start accelerating some more energy cards. Going with the neutralizing gas Galarian Weezing here. There, of course, is a second Galarian Weezing that does make its appearance every now and again with the Energy Factory, but going to be content here right now with 5 energies on board. Dark Pulse really starting to add up.
Drawing up to 7 with the Professor's Research, trying to find the last piece of the puzzle to make this really explosive attack happen. Where is the Darkrai V-Star? 2 more draws thanks to concealed cards from Radiant Greninja.
We do see Ultra Ball in hand. Dark Pulse, of course, 30 plus 30 for every energy on your side of the board. We see 5 so far, the Choice Belt as well, so that's essentially 7 plus 30, so we see that 210, just a little bit short of the knockout here on the Origin Form Palkia V, so one more Dark Patch along with the Darkrai V-Star would be enough to get the job done here.
It would be such a massive swing every time, coming down to just 10 damage short to just have a irreparably ridiculous swing your opponent will not be able to recover from. But indeed, Johnathan does go for the Ultra Ball, discards the second Darkrai and a Quick Ball. Going to go digging. What are we looking for from this position?
I like my main attacker. Yeah, this...
it's got to be the Darkrai. There we go.
This looks great. You go ahead, the board setup is nice. You can't complain about 5 energies, but maybe you wish you had the other Galarian Weezing in play.
Yeah, with that Energy Factory ability, any dark energy that's attached to a Weezing counts as 2 darkness energy. So it just boosts the power of that Dark Pulse to astronomical amounts. And finally, we see Darkrai V-Star hit play. The underdog of the metagame, Question mark? We'll have to see. This is still just game one, and you're going up against the boogeyman of the meta, Palkia V-Star.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Darkrai is an underdog in this tournament and in this meta. A lot of players saying, I don't have time for this right now. I'm going to focus on the big dogs and countering the big dogs, as Azul was talking about, and Darkrai kind of getting snobbed.
Yeah. And now with the potential use of Star Abyss, we can get a couple dark patches back, attach more darkness energy, but a little bit more work still needs to be done in order to, actually KO this Palkia V. And Johnathan smartly opts to retreat. Now that you've jumped through so many hoops to get your main attacker, you've got to keep him safe.
All right, it does look like we are going to see the Darkrai V-Star getting some item cards back in. We've seen ways of getting items before in this tournament, or in Pokemon, with cards like the Sableye Junk Hunting, and we have Star Abyss. It's going to be doing very similar things, and look at that. Dark Patches are good cards. You get energies, and we love those.
Double Dark Patch, and just going to cash those in immediately to put the energies right back on to Darkrai. It's a lot of steps in the process to say, I have free retreat, wink, wink. But now that, again, Johnathan has the main attacker set up, puts the neutralizing gas in the active spot, your opponent's Pokemon have no abilities. So now, again, just trying to lock out those Drizziles. And this is where things get very scary for Natalie. We've seen so many times where you've got these Sobbles ready to go, ready to turn your engine online. You turn that key, and you're out of gas.
Yeah, especially with the prices these days, too. You're not going to get any more. Now, we do see now Natalie really just has to find two cards. You need an Energy, and you need a Palkia V-Star. You have to remove this threat, it looks like. Cross Switchers is asking a lot of your deck, especially when you don't have access to any of your abilities currently. And the Melanie is going to be the way to do it. Maybe the Palkia V-Star isn't in hand. Going to look on the top and see if she can find any help.
Cross Switcher maybe to get this Weezing out of the active spot.
I see Boss's orders, but that's not going to work. Oh, the Evolution Incense is lovely there.
So we can find what we need, hopefully. Even though your Pokemon don't have any abilities, you can still attack. That's the key, right? Johnathan is saying you can take down, you can get a knockout from this Weezing, but the fact that I can forestall your Sobble, Inteleon, Drizzile engine for a turn is going to be such a massive boon for my strategy of just getting this strong start, generating that tempo, and closing out the game.
Yeah, the prize exchange here just looks very nice for Johnathan. Just only losing the Galarian Weezing in this situation, and eventually, the Darkrai is going to come up. But if you have counterplay with this Palkia V on the bench, Natalie's certainly looking at that right now with the Choice Belt. Maybe you do have an answer to this big Darkrai on the other side.
Path to the Peak hits play. Galarian Weezing goes down. That's going to be one prize for Natalie. Finds one of those Sobbles, if I'm not mistaken. And now Darkrai V-Star finds his opportunity to come up into the active spot, and a second Weezing evolves. Now we just need a little bit more darkness energy in play to pump up this Dark Pulse and take the KO. Weezing did its job of dealing 40 damage to the Palkia, softening it up, hopefully, for Darkrai to take the win.
Yep, to see Galarian Moltres V adding an additional energy to the board. Putting the total at 6 with 30 and the Choice Belt, you're hitting for 240. And that's good math. That's going to be a big knockout there from Johnathan onto the Palkia.
2 prizes going over to Johnathan. The prize trade, as you said, Kaya, working out massively in his favor. So now Natalie has to scramble and get a Palkia V-Star online, get a subspace swell, try to fight back into this match, because Johnathan has a very big bench and is playing beautifully into that V-Star attack.
Well, Irida, a great way to keep that consistency flowing. You can go ahead and find that Origin Form Palkia V-Star with the main attacker here right now. The Water Energy is already in hand. And Palkia will be taking a knockout as long as one more Pokemon hits the bench for Natalie. It's going to be pretty easy when you got cards like Ultra Ball.
and everything's coming up roses. The Irida's been so powerful. Again, you search for that water Pokemon and then an item card. You know, players have gotten really cheeky with the rare candy inclusion, but it's just a supporter that gives you that sort of Drizzile ability and also finding that missing piece. That's really I think the overall theme of the Inteleon engine is the ability to find whatever you happen to be missing and employing it when it's going to be at its maximum effectiveness.
Yeah, I think that this style of Palkia is in a really great spot because a lot of players aren't focused on hand disruption. They're focused on their own strategy. And if you're playing a deck like Irida where you can continually start to add these cards into your hand, these choice belts, these cross switchers, if you get ahead in the prize exchange at any point, you're going to stay ahead when you can start picking Pokemon off of the bench.
That's kind of actually how, you know, like Rapid Strike Malamar used to do it. You don't really care too much about what your opponent is doing. You just get your big attacker set up and you just keep swinging until the game is over and you've taken all the prizes. And every powerful list currently in the metagame has a hybrid of I have a strong attacker and just a splash of disruption for the matchups that are really terrible. So finally, Star Portal happening, going to set up the next Palkia, attach 3 water energies there, and with the benches full on both sides, Temple of Sinnoh to bump the training court, looks like Subspace Swell is going to come through, and Darkrai V-Star goes down. After Johnathan was forced to jump through so many hoops just to get that attacker set up, had to retreat it, wait an additional turn, and at least it got a KO before it went down. But Natalie is now generating the tempo for her board. Now I have the massive attacker ready to swing in on the next target.
Yep. We see Galarian Moltres V adding an additional energy. Oh, look at that hand.
Oh, no.
We see Roxanne.
Roxanne, you think your opponent's feeling good, lull them into that false sense of security, and Roxanne, what a powerful supporter from the new meta. But Ultra Ball is going to be the first move on the list. Roxanne, you shuffle, each player shuffles their hand into their deck, and you put your opponent on 2 cards when you get to draw 6. And even with the Inteleon engine, if your opponent spent that previous turn gathering a bunch of resources, preparing for a combo, and you completely shut that down, and those next 2 cards aren't something that can bail them out from that board state, then you just take over the game. And so I know that Johnathan is very happy to see the Roxanne here at exactly the right moment.
Yeah, Roxanne in combination with that neutralizing gas can be pretty impactful. Your opponent basically is just in top deck mode. No abilities are going to be beneficial. Thankfully for Natalie, does have a really strong attacker in the active spot already. So that does start to reduce the overall impact here.
As long as you can keep attacking, you know, maybe your hand doesn't matter. We've seen plenty of games go that way, Kyle, where once you're set up, you just draw attack immediately. You almost don't even need to look at the card that you drew, and that's really what Natalie's going to be trying to do, I think, from this position, is just keep on swinging. Oh my God, the boss!
The 3-card boss! That's so nasty, just going to take this Darkrai. You saw Johnathan felt comfortable charging it up on the bench, thought that he was safe. Not today, because Boss is waiting in the wings and is going to take a huge knockout here to maybe shift the tides here in this matchup.
You thought you were safe. Even though I only have 2 cards in hand, every player gets to draw 1 at the start of their turn, and Natalie channeling that classic protagonist energy, getting that card exactly when she needs it now.
Well, the last prize for Natalie is a Palkia V-Star. Maybe that's a little bit awkward. We see Johnathan looking at the Origin Form Palkia V.
Maybe just double-checking that HP, seeing if there's some math there.
I think he's worried about Hydro Break for 200. Says, oh no, yeah, if I bring up my Galarian Moltres V, I do 30 damage to myself, and then I'm in range of a knockout. Let's just go to game 2.
Yeah, so game 2, Natalie able to come back from when things were at their most dire. Roxanne, the card that everybody lives in fear of in the metagame. When you finally get halfway towards that victory, you get put into this artificially bricked state. Players were trying to create the that sort of hand state for their opponent consistently back when like Marnie first came out. And also with Malamar VMAX, right, where you would try to use that to shuffle a card from your opponent's hand back in after a Marnie to put them on as few cards in hand as possible. But Roxanne just lets you just kind of channel that Malamar energy into whatever deck you choose.
Yeah, it's a great comeback mechanism. Maybe not as unfair as N has been. N to 1 is something iconic in the Pokemon TCG, and 6 and 2 seems pretty fair, especially with the caveat of 3 prize cards already being taken. So it's fun to see that, and I'm definitely excited to see if it makes its way into this second game here.
Ooh, Johnathan shaking his head. I don't know if you got a glimpse of that, viewers, but he's starting the Crobat V, the forbidden downside of these Darkness decks. Almost any Crobat deck. I think Crobat starting in the active and Radiant Greninja somehow always being in the prizes are like the two things that happen way more often than they should mathematically.
Yep. Natalie with the quick shooting Inteleon stuck in the prize cards. Not a big deal, but
attach pass.
Oh no, not like this.
Oh, not like this. You start with Crobat in the active. It's not as bad as any other deck because at least you have the Darkness energy, so you can attack with it. You can get some poison, you can get some chip damage. But when you attach and then pass, Natalie jumping out with the double Palkia development onto the bench, Johnathan is now in really dire straits, has the second attached to the Crobat V, has access to that Venomous Fang, but Professor's Research has to come out big here. Let's go.
I think this hand is exactly what Johnathan ordered. Said, well, if you're going to give me Crobat V, at least you give me almost 7 perfect cards, multiple quick balls.
Mamma mia. The Radiant Greninja hitting the bench. There is 1 Darkness energy to discard and draw 2 more cards. And already Jonathan's recovering from such an abysmal start, has the threat of the Galarian Weezing once again to turn off Natalie Millar's abilities and keep her from really capitalizing on this incredible foundation.
Johnathan just the 1 Crobat, so this hand actually slows down pretty drastically. Maybe if they had the second, we could see a big turn here. Instead, going to be very reliant on that Radiant Greninja to conceal cards and try to draw out of this mess.
Just getting 1 early prize, that extra card is really what you need. Everything is in play for Johnathan, but no big attacking threats as of yet. When you have to spend 2 turns attaching to your Crobat V, just so you have some modicum of a threat, it's also taking time away from developing your true attackers that are going to close out. Even when Johnathan got fully set up, Natalie Millar already had that Palkia V-Star in the active and closed out the game before Johnathan could really do anything.
Oh, saw Natalie do the finger dance, and that usually means things are happening. The concealed cards comes down, energy to the discard pile. Maybe that opens up some different plays here. You take a star portal that's not to its full extent, but maybe you can get a knockout here and just really push the aggression.
Trying to capitalize, right? When you see the result of game 1, and you like what you saw, you're going to try to replicate that. And so Natalie is like, it doesn't matter. Now that I see I can weather the storm of the Weezings and all these shenanigans, if I can just have a big attacking Pokemon, I know I'm at an advantage. Crobat V goes down. Ooh. Natalie takes 2 prize cards, now ahead in the trade, and Johnathan has to send up this coughing. And you can see him looking at Johnathan like, boy, this one's not looking too good.
That's a path to the peak that got snuck in at the very last second, and I think that was what solidified this turn as an impressive one. Taking the knockout and locking out that Radiant Greninja on the other side of the board is absolutely huge here.
Yeah, because Radiant Greninja, Radiant Pokemon being only 1 copy available in your entire deck, has a rule box, so it does get cut off. But now as Johnathan is trying to figure out how can I now swing back into this? How can I have a counter threat? It's really hard to say what you could even pivot to from this position.
Yeah, trying to find the answer. Is it the Galarian Moltres V? No, the ability is shut down.
Has to stick to his guns with the Darkrai V-Star. At the very least, try to get a big attacker, something you can promote into the active. If we do get the Energy Factory Galarian Weezing to double up on those energies plus, you know, another training cord or something to bump this path to the peak, get more darkness energy in play, I could see it come together, but that's only available if Natalie doesn't do anything. Coughing goes down. Natalie taking another prize. Things are back over to Johnathan. You can see this is the situation I talked about last game, Kyle. Once you get set up and comfy in the active spot, you don't even need to look at your top deck. You just keep swinging until the game is done.
Yeah, smack, smack, go. And that's definitely what we're looking at here. Johnathan would love to potentially find that top deck stadium to use the Star Abyss ability of the Darkrai V-Star. Maybe there's something in the discard pile to help get through this nightmare of a hand right now, but it's not looking good here. And I don't think Natalie's going to be able to get the one-hit knockout, but 2 is looking very clean.
And that's really all you care about. When Johnathan does not have any threat potential, you're taking Pokemon off the bench, so there's no way to spread that energy around to power up the Dark Pulse. You're just cracking in, and there's just nothing Johnathan can do, unfortunately. With the Wheezing, with the neutralizing gas, we saw the glimmer of what this list truly wants to do. Really gumming up your opponent's hand, making their turns so awkward, eventually getting a powerful Rock Sand to seal the deal on the game. But Natalie just got set up way too quickly, and now we have this massive attacker in the active, and Natalie continues to enjoy fantastic tempo and access to the Drizzile engine.
Yeah, it's a strong combination, the neutralizing gas, when you have these Pokemon threatening big one-hit knockouts on the bench. But right now we see just this Darkrai V-Star trying to get the job done with 2 energies, and you need more time. You need that Wheezing to slow down your opponent enough, and Palkia just doesn't give you that time.
Mm-hmm. Even though Johnathan, again, took advantage of a really terrible start with the Crobat V, no benching turn 1, still was able to make the best of what he had with 2 Darkness attached, got a KO on the Sobble. But as I said before, those 2 rounds, those 2 turns of just attaching and not doing anything gave Natalie Millar all the time in the world, essentially, to get fully stacked. Now with a big bench, the subspace swell is about to hit for massive damage here.
Yeah, that's brutal. When you're holding 2 cards in hand and your main attacker is 1 foot out the door, you hope to find a Professor's Research. Instead, you find an Ultra Ball and you're still path locked.
Yep, 200 damage onto the Darkrai, just barely living, and just going to pass back with an attack. Palkia V-Star still alive. And if once Natalie takes this attack, down to 1 prize remaining, and it is a very, very sad repetition of the first game. Yep. And that is going to be a clean 2-0 going to Natalie Millar. Unfortunately, Johnathan brought an underdog deck, but it wasn't quite able to get there. Origin form Palkia V-Star, the poster child of Astral Radiance thus far, demonstrating what it can really do.
Yeah, if you like Cinderella's story, this isn't the match for you. This is a story of a deck that is so strong in the hands of one of the best players in the world, just absolutely decimating on